I call the meeting of the planning board to order. The first item on the agenda is without Paul here, you'll take the minutes. Okay, thank you, Grace. First item on the agenda is to move the previous minutes. Did everyone have a chance to review it?
Yep.
Did anyone have any objections?
Because I moved that we could be in meetings Thursday.
Yeah. And so moved, any discussion? So Tom,
Aye.
Ken.
Aye.
And Kathy, aye. Just trying to see if anyone's on.
It's okay, that's one of the meetings.
There was a. And treasurer's report, do we have a, hey, Margaret? Oh, sorry. Do we have a treasurer's report?
Yeah, we've got some expense, that's some envelopes and we spent it for 36. It's all on.
Yeah.
And Paul Carey just joined online. Do I have to initial it or just?
I'll get you some checks.
Right, since the part. Okay, and is there a planners report?
Yeah. So I'm waiting to go out with the RFQ for the mass community planning grant for the inclusionary zoning stuff. I'm just, the last thing I'm waiting for, I'm just waiting for the procurement officer, which is Joe, to just give his final okay on it. So I don't want to go live with that, signing off on it. That's all I'm waiting for. So as soon as I get that, I'm gonna go live with it. I submitted for technical assistance through Mass Housing Partnership, and that was for the 40B. That's for technical assistance to this ZBA. So I'm hoping to get some board education out of that. So they'll come probably to the board meeting and give an overview of that process and their role in that process. Because we get a lot of new members on that board.
So that's for the zoning board.
Zoning board. Yeah. Affordable Housing Trust is underway, as we just had that meeting tonight, just prior to this meeting. They're starting to identify needs and resources as they recollect as a group. So town manager and myself have been sitting in on those meetings, working on some town meeting warrants for request of funds. So those are sort of the beginning stages with the Affordable Housing Trust. The EDC is actively looking for new membership. I believe they're down 2 members currently. So, you know, they're hoping to get local business owners, people who are interested in joining. So, if you know anybody that you think might be interested in serving on the EDC, let me know or reach out to them. Loop me in.
EDC is.
Economic Development Committee, excuse me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shake it up.
A zoning board recently approved a built-in freezer addition on Gasco, just right down on Main Street. And we still need a CMRPC delegate, I guess, to we're short that. I think Gary used to do that. But we don't have anybody currently who's filling that role, I don't think.
What is the responsibilities of that role?
Need to go to the meetings.
Do they need to go to the meetings or
Nice.
how often do they meet?
I mean, there's so many of those meetings. They
It's not a way to recruit people.
yeah, I know.
Full time job.
They're usually during the day. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah.
But they're not at night because it's CMRPC, so it's during business hours usually. You know, there's joint transportation committee meetings. There's the MPO meetings. And there's other, and I'm forgetting which ones that would be required to attend as a delegate. I'm not sure.
I can't do daytime meetings.
I get us in trouble.
Days are hard to run too.
Yeah, I mean, just in general, and you have a question from,
Oh, no, I was trying to signal for the folder to come back here.
oh,
Sorry.
no. Well, I'm glad I interrupted. I didn't folder.
Thank you.
Yeah, I worked for CMRPC for a brief period of time as a consultant, and when they had the meetings, they were very ill attended.
Yes,
So I think one of the things that is worth doing is maybe take this up again at the next meeting. And to take a look at what committees folks think might benefit them, because they do might benefit the town, because they do have a whole, they have millions of committees, and I would say usually one or two towns would come to each.
Yeah.
Each committee.
Paul's not here, that's usually a good reason to nominate, so.
It's Paul is there. Paul is watching.
I'm writing the minutes, so the minutes reflect that who is now the delegate. I can write down right now.
I'm sort of half looking at Ken, but I wanted to know what he's getting into first.
I also like the fact that when I read the transcript, some of the things that show up, the WHO is apparently going to be our delegate to the CRPC.
capitalized.
This is out of the Grinch, right? From Whoville. Okay.
That was basically it. And then we're going live with the new website, I think on Friday, right, Grace?
Yeah.
Right.
That's it.
Is there a web link so folks can see what committees there are, what the response, or is it?
Yeah, sure. Also.
Send us. Yeah.
If I may, Chairperson, is there an update on the Prime gas station and the senior housing conflict? Where we
No.
Is that the one West Hutchinson?
or where the entire parking lot is
Yeah.
on gas stations line
Yeah.
for 20 years?
They Coach Road Apartments had applied for a building permit for something. External stairs or something, and were denied because of the existence of that, and the inability for, people with disabilities to access. Without having to go through another property that isn't owned or operated by Coach Road, so
Thanks.
it's been stagnant ever since then.
So is that it for the planners report?
It is.
Okay. Then the next thing on the agenda is a approval not required for 10 Kiwanis Beach Road, lot 1 and 2. Did everyone look at the meeting package? And it does have the engineer stamp. I double checked.
Yes.
That was my question.
Somebody stamped.
Yeah,
It wasn't on the thing that was sent around. So I just checked. So,
Paul, did you say something?
No, that was my question. It did, the stamp wasn't on the the version in the packet, the electronic version.
Right, yeah, we have it, we have the live stamp here on the Mylar.
yeah, Tommy beat that into me. That was the first thing I checked. Sure the stamp was there
Yeah, there.
in the frontage and everything.
Very clean table. Yeah, that goes. That project is straight line. Severe. We have our square footage, we have our setbacks.
Sorry.
And there were comments from the cons.
There were comments.
Yeah.
There was no wetlands shown on the plan. Does that match up with what we got from?
I could quickly reference Mass GIS to see if they have anything noted.
Concom just basically said that they requested
Rather bold shape.
notification, what is it, I know.
And I know why.
Because it's on the pond there.
I don't know, we do need to, trade copies.
Did you bring down the paper? Yeah. So.
Will we sign it? Second.
All in favor? I'm gonna start with you, Paul, because you're, I can't see you. Paul,
Aye.
okay, Tom? Margaret?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
And then me, so that's unanimous. Sign now?
Jen, so,
Awesome.
Dog is very.
Looks like mine.
have a good night. I wrote it nice once. Thank you for saying that. Yes.
Okay, we did it right.
Date is?
Six.
This was two copies of drinks.
Two sign. Three signs, so. I'll let that draw.
Oh, these are all pre-folded. One, one.
No, we have two signs.
Did we sign two paper? Oh, you were. I did it this one. I think I did.
And so you know about more about
Was that your symbol?
maybe three.
Yeah.
It's getting worse.
Everybody's. Forward, right.
Real with that? Okay. Going right through this tonight. Okay, pretty sure I have the right units here. The next thing is, to vote to approve decision document on 108 Grove Street, LL large lot, frontage, special permit. There was a copy that was circulated. This was approved at the last meeting. I think, Paul, you had some changes to it, correct?
I did, and Mike, and I talked about it, and I think Mike covered them all.
Yep, all the changes that Paul noted were incorporated.
If people wanna, are people comfortable with it, or?
I'm abstaining, I wasn't.
I would move to approve the, move to sign the decision.
I second. Any discussion? Okay, Paul, vote. Paul?
Aye.
Margaret, abstain?
Same.
Tony?
Aye.
Kathy, aye, it's unanimous. Okay, next thing on the agenda is the discussion of the town's right of refusal on Kelly's farm. It's my understanding that there's a 2-acre lot, it's agricultural. And it's up on East Street near the corner of Taft Street, I believe.
Mhm.
And they want to carve it off and it's and sell it. And they're offering, it's under 61A. So the town gets right of first refusal. After talking to Joe Layton, they didn't submit, when you submit a proposal or when you request to sell up, or you notify the town, you're supposed to have a purchase and sale, and they do not have
Well,
one.
not really match.
Yeah, no,
It's a big goal.
they have not. It's just that we're planning to do this and you want it. And so it's Joe's belief that it's not a legitimate location, and therefore the clock hasn't started on the 120 days. So I would suggest to the planning board that we defer this until more details. Joe's going to talk to the town council about it,
Yeah, sure.
but I don't think any action needs to be taken tonight on this.
It's, through the chair, I would suggest to the board that, it's good opportunity to start thinking about it. Is there any, do you see any value in that property if the town were to act?
The 2-acre.
Yeah.
Lot.
So obviously, if you want to defer, you don't have to have the conversation now, but that's the board's probably aware, this being probably Ken's first go around with something like this. The board would have to make a recommendation to Board of Selectmen whether or not to exercise that right to, match whatever the market value is presented for that property. So if the town would like to take control and purchase it. The recommendation coming from this board would be, either, yes, we would recommend it because we see XYZ value in it, for whatever purpose, whether it's a potential recreational value, open space value, affordable housing value, something. That's it.
At that lot size, that really diminishes our ability to use it for anything.
And I don't think it has sewer or water.
Yeah, and they sold off 2 lots up there a few years ago.
So just a question, in looking at the letter that was sent by the Board of Assessors, I thought it said, I'm looking at, if the landowner is selling the property, the municipality must match a bona fide offer that the landowner received. If the landowner is converting the use, the municipality must pay fair market value. So, which is determined by an appraisal. So if they're just selling it to, or, giving it to a family member and it's not an arm's length sale, is that a conversion where
No.
the right of refusal kicks in, or no?
Through the chair, Paul, I don't, not being legal counsel, I don't know for sure, but reading that chapter 61A today, there's a paragraph that specifically addresses that, and it made it sound as though it doesn't trigger this process if it's just being transferred to a family member or something like that. That was my interpretation of reading it today, but again, a non-legal counsel, I would want an opinion on that.
Well, in the past, it makes sense because if you transfer it to a family member, they could still use it for the original use. The use hasn't changed. It's agricultural residential. It's not going to change. There's a house there. That land is still agricultural residential use. And if it's in the family, it would make no sense to have the town buy it.
I think through the chair, this particular lot, as Joe just explained to us, that I think there was interest by an abutting landowner who wasn't a part of the farm. And it sounded like that deal probably fell through. So they decided to go through with it anyway and section off the parcel and potentially put it up for sale.
But I think the bottom line is that, there's 121 days if the clock has started, which we don't think it has. So the town doesn't think it has. So I don't think there's any point to discussing this and making a recommendation at length because, to the best of our knowledge, there's nothing happened.
And when they do go to sell it, the lot size may change and we may not even be talking about a two-acre lot.
Yeah.
I agree.
So do we have to take a vote on that? Okay. So, we done with that? Okay, next on the agenda is discussion on 47 Main Street, 40B apartment application to the ZBA. I noticed there are a number of people online, and there are a number of people in the room. Thank you for coming. Just as a point of clarification to start, this is the planning board. The planning board, doesn't have an active role to play in this process. But we've been given an opportunity by the ZBA to comment on the proposed apartment complex on 57 Main Street. And as folks know, not to repeat what you guys probably know better than I do, by law, if 10% of the community's housing is not listed on the state subsidized housing inventory, it will be subject to the 40B hearing, whereby a developer can apply for a comprehensive permit through the ZBA to build affordable housing that is not subject to planning board review. We are well below that mandated threshold. For projects under its purview, the planning board typically holds public hearings and hires a consultant to conduct a peer review of the developer's proposal and weighs comments by public safety, the conservation, and other appropriate town bodies to advise its decision. That will happen with the planning board, with the zoning board, not with the planning board. After reviewing the proposal and the comments submitted by residents and the Board of Selectmen, Mass Housing determined that the project generally appears eligible under requirements of the program. Subject to final review, and eligibility is also advised that the issues raised by town and residents be addressed by the applicant at the ZBA. Given the law, it is not my opinion that the planning board has a constructive role to play in this discussion. We have not done the due diligence necessary to make an informed recommendation to the ZBA, in my opinion. That said, I will defer to my colleagues, but I also want to outline to folks how the planning board operates. Planning board members will discuss amongst themselves of what, if they have any thoughts on this issue, and then we'll open it up for public comment. Because of the number of people in this room, I would request that people keep their comments to no more than 2 minutes. And we will, everything's being taped, and that will be referred to the zoning board. But I assume that everyone's going to be at the meeting on the 18th anyway, and will make the response very well known to them. So I'm now going to open it up for planning board discussion.
And the first thing that I would recommend the planning board look at is the impacts, recommend to the zoning board the impacts, just like we do with any other. And just listen to it, the impact on the schools will be considerable. I think that emergency, maybe not so much. Sight and noise, I don't know. I haven't seen the project, but I'm certain this is going to be for a year or so, a lot of sight and noise issues.
Well, there was no elevation plans. Down low, sticking up high, it's 4 stories. but-
It's flat. We've got blasting going on North Street, blasting going on in the center of town.
Right.
And noise and traffic. I'm not so sure traffic's gonna be an issue because it's out of Main Street, but there's 1,500 cars an hour going 6 o'clock. So, but property values is also an issue, going to have an impact on property values in the neighborhood. So those are the things that I think need to be minimized or at least addressed from the planning board to the community, that there's a lot of impacts that will affect the neighborhood in the town.
So, just so Tom, are you suggesting though that we send a letter to ZBA to ensure that they consider those things? Because we don't have the full plans, nor do we have an engineering report in for us in order to be able to make an
Yes.
informed decision about
And
those.
just to add to that, Tom, and sorry for interrupting, Margaret, in the letter that Mass Housing wrote to, when improvement wrote to the developer, the wetlands issue and the height issue were things that they asked to be, or they suggested be explained to the ZBA. They also said that schools and property values will not factor into their decision, and it is their decision to make. It is not, the ZBA issues a comprehensive permit, but it ends up, basically doesn't comply with state law. In terms of schools, one of the things, 149 Main Street, is that there were 3 kids that went to school when 149 Main Street was built, and all those were Upton residents beforehand. So, and I've been told by folks in Hopkinton and other towns that the impact on schools is negligible. So,
What about if it's teaching 15 or 20 kids that don't speak English?
yeah, I mean, this is,
You're gonna start a whole new.
yeah, but again, that's not part of this decision process.
My thing is, I would only caution them that this is the impacts that the planning board, when it looks at a project, these are the things that we do. We look at large projects a lot more than they do. And these are the factors that we consider the impacts of the project on the environment and on the people.
Yeah, I mean, without knowing, how many non-English speakers will be going into apartments where the 61,000 for a single family is the, I mean, I guess it's a decision whether the planning board, without having done its due diligence, sees it appropriate
I think
to submit comments.
the most we can submit as a comment is, these are the things that we generally look at. I think we can do that.
All I would ask.
Because I
I
think,
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Margaret. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think what Margaret is saying goes right to my point. I think with 149 Main, we did do a brief letter. And, one of the things that I think we were concerned with was, just eyeballing it. Again, we haven't done the engineering review. Was there enough parking with 149 Main? How has that turned out? Did they get it right? Did they get it wrong? I'm not aware of any problems, but that's something that we would, that we would obviously look at. And, just kind of those general guidelines that we would look at, as Tom pointed out, more projects come to this board. And I think maybe if we just sort of highlight a few of the things that we generally look at, that those boards are going to use reviewing engineers, I assume, to look at the project. But, the construction noise, construction, how to minimize construction issues, how to minimize visual impacts on the neighborhood
Like
with,
pollution-
I'm sorry, like,
Light pollution too?
yeah, light pollution's always a big one, right? We always want zero leakage of light off of the site, things like that. I think we did a letter along those lines with 149, because again, we didn't have a full engineering review or anything close to that, but we just sort of gave our general guidelines, our general areas that we would be concerned with.
Mike, do you think you can find a copy of that letter?
I was just trying to look. Yeah, I'll see if I can track it down.
I have no problem submitting a letter like that. I don't think that, schools is an issue that I've ever dealt with when I've been with the planning board, is looking at the impact on the school. So I don't think that's something that we typically look at.
Every time you look at what's the impact in schools, are no different than emergency, no different than roads.
I just haven't, we're issuing something about what we typically look at, and that's not something that I've ever,
We have,
In regular subdivisions,
you can look at a governor's land. Oh, but that's over 55.
that's over 55.
Okay. No, we haven't had that many major.
and our schools are losing population.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
it's
been
not-
an issue for 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and they still are losing populations.
Yes, that's not.
I mean, I don't have a problem with, replicating this is what we usually do.
Oh, I should know, I'm sorry, the schools, I did send the same transmittal that this board received through a requesting comment, should you want to comment. Every board and commission received, and that includes the schools. So the schools were made aware of, obviously, the development, so they'll have an opportunity to comment, and they're obviously going to be concerned about capacity. So they'll have an ability to comment on that.
So you folks want to submit a recommendation, you want to submit a letter, or what do folks?
I like your idea to have Mike find the letter, see if you got from us last time, and we'll, it's more of a guidance, more of a guidance rather than.
Okay.
I'll track it down, I'm sure it's around somewhere.
So how do we do it with the time limit? I guess we don't have, when is our next meeting?
You know, so that, I think in my transmittal as well, I said, for other boards that may not have been meeting prior to that, to basically not worry about it. And that we'll get it in. It's gonna be more than just one public hearing. The opportunity to comment
Okay.
and to provide the zoning board comments.
Oh,
So-
so we're meeting again on the 10th of October, and when's the meeting of the ZBA? Is it the 8th?
18th.
Plenty.
Okay,
Yep.
so we can, so if you can dig that up, that would be great.
Absolutely.
And what the intent is just to say, these are typically what we look at, these are typical, okay. Okay. Do folks on the board have anything else to say, or should we open to public comment?
What do you have to say?
What I'd like to do, if it's okay with you guys, is go around the room and hear comments from people that are here physically that want to talk, and then go online, because I have a hard time following
Do you
what's online.
want them to state their name to?
Yeah, if you can state their, state
And we
their-
have them, sign in, so
yeah.
that's.
I'll start with you, because I'm looking straight at you.
Awesome. Not sure exactly what kind of comments we're looking for here.
Your name first would be good.
Thank you. My name is William Doherty. I live on 21 Hazeltine Road. I am a direct abutter of this proposed development. I've lived there my whole life. I'm raising my own kids there now. A lot of immediate concerns come to my mind, whether it's noise, light, it's all the common ones. And my biggest thing is more of just what the neighborhood has been and where I've been born and raised, just seems like we're just kind of tearing all that apart. And, throwing in this proposed building 4, 5, who knows how many stories in a small, quiet little suburb seems a little extravagant. Obviously, because I'm directly affected, might be a little biased. But I think I can speak for the majority of people that if we understand that things have been put in motion that we can't stop. I think I get that, but I think it'd be nice if there was some kind of compromise to, appease to everybody, especially the people that are gonna be directly impacted. 5-story building, 4-story building, seems a little over the top. In regards to water, wetlands. Yeah, I could go on, I'm sure everybody else has
Yeah.
roughly the same opinion to say, so.
Oh, can I take a question? Since these don't have to follow planning board, with the planning board process, do they go through a conservation process? They can
have to
avoid,
comply
they can
with
avoid
federal- it's
conservation.
State and federal, state and federal.
The comprehensive permit is just that. It's intended, the ZBA is by design through state law. The local authority acting as all local boards. They're acting as the planning board, they're acting as the conservation commission, they're acting as,
Public safety.
any other local board.
Yeah.
approval.
But if they get a comment, the Concom are the ones that are gonna say, this does not comply with state law, because that's what they're doing anyways. They're determining whether things comply with state law. So if it's not in compliance with state law, they will be informing the ZBA. They won't be voting, the ZBA will be voting.
And then the ZBA has the same authority as the conservation to enforce.
State law.
Yeah.
Not the town wetland bylaw, but the state
Yes.
Yeah.
wetland protection.
Somewhat comforting.
So,
Thank you.
My name is Elizabeth Hughes. I live at 9 Whitney Lane, so this will be in my backyard as well. Same, I have a lot of concerns about the wetlands. There's a lot of wildlife in my backyard. We have owls, we have foxes, we have coyotes, we have deer. I hate to see that disrupted. Our neighborhood is beautiful. All the power lines are underground. There's no street lights. One of the things I love about my property is the quiet and peace and the dark. I'm concerned about light pollution, traffic, all of it. I just really would like to see us try to identify an alternative location. I think that smack dab in the middle of Main Street is going to be a traffic issue. They're going to be an eyesore. I'm concerned about property value. On and on and on. I just really would like to see us try to find an alternative site.
good question. Have you guys talked to Olympus there? Are you gonna be looking to develop, or are you gonna be working
Selecting to
with, what's that?
and supposedly offered him multiple sites and he refused.
But talked about reducing,
This
addressing
officer,
some of the
yeah.
issues.
Well, we're hoping to get it null and void first. We don't want it to go.
Well, the last time this particular, the last time this Locus applied to this board, he sold the project as soon as he approved it. But he may not be the builder.
How would we have access?
That's why I think that would be different with the 40, because he's the one that's getting, Yeah.
The idea of an affordable housing is, you can't tell me, nobody can tell me what affordable housing is, and up to them deciding yet.
it's 61 for one person.
It's gonna change. This particular project has to be negotiated between the applicant and the town. The housing authority, one of the 327 housing authorities in the state. And it's private ownership. This is gonna be subsidized by the government to a private developer. So that's what I see as affordable housing as opposed to state money. So the developer's getting paid to do this. And there's no guarantee that he's gonna be the one when he's done. Everyone has the right to sell the project after it's approved.
Just to, you probably know this, but 25% of the units will be affordable.
Yeah. And 75% will be
Will be
market
luxury.
value.
Yeah,
What's that? So for 25, so for 15, 20 units, we're gonna do that kind of disruption to the. How's that really gonna help?
Well, that's not our choice though. That's what they're talking about is the problem with 40B is until we reach our 10%. That's why we need to reach our 10%.
Not sure if you're aware, but the reason 40B was enacted was because planning boards said no to this stuff. And so they had to find a way around it. They set the 10% limit.
Yeah.
And I asked them, why is it 10%? Sounds like that was just
Yeah.
why not 9.7 or 10.3? Did you do any calculations to stuff? If you just take this out of your hair, it's gonna be 10%. So planning boards have been moved out of the process.
Yeah.
Pushed out of the process because we have all these rules.
And it's not even affordable, as folks know, because Upton has lots of affordable housing, but it's not on the subsidized housing authority. And if it's not deed restricted, it don't count, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
So, hey, Marcia. See, I know your name.
I hope that's a good thing. Marcia Kaslowski, 10 Whitney Lane. Just to answer a couple of your questions, firstly, about the schools. This scab, which runs along Memorial School, has seen a real increase in traffic recently. And they're doing that to avoid Hartford Ave and School Street, which are a mess. So if you put 68 units there, you're going to have an extra 120 cars going up a street with these little kids all the time. And right now, the neighbors got together and put up signs in front of the school, slow down signs, which some of you may have seen. And the drivers are still speeding through there. When you use something like Waves, it's going to direct you. There is an alternate route when everything else backs up. It's going to be horrible for school kids. There's going to be an accident waiting to happen. The other thing is, the builder put in a traffic study to say that in the morning, it'll be about 17 cars impact. There's 68 units. Most units will have 2 people. That's at least, I'll say 110 cars, but I would say 120 cars in the complex. So where did it come up with 17, 27 in the afternoon? These numbers are crazy. And they,
For peak hour impact.
So,
For us, it would be 2 cars per unit.
yeah, so the ZBA will hire, I assume, a reviewing engineer, and one of the things they look at are the traffic studies and
Thank you.
things like that. So
to hear
so
that.
those are things that will be reviewed as part of this.
I mean, a lot of the concerns have been, people feel all that any better, but a lot of these concerns will be addressed at the ZBA. Because they do have the authority to hire, consulting engineers, to hire peer reviewers, to actually look at this stuff.
So we'll get there. We're just hitting every board.
I respect that, I respect that. It's,
Traffic impact study that came with Lavicia's plan is flawed because they assess the risk at School Street in 140 and at Mendon Street in 140, but there's no mention of the traffic on Fisk Ave at all. The Fisk Ave is removed from their traffic impacts.
Traffic studies are usually measured at intersections, not on the street, they'll measure it.
Well, let's just stop. Let's go in order just so we know who's talking and then.
I know the builder said it's 4 stories, but if you notice the picture, there's actually 5 stories. And then there's a facade on the top of the roof to hide the solar panels. We're talking 5.5 stories. Now they're telling the fire department when they're evaluating their equipment, it's 4 stories. So we want to make sure everyone knows that. The other issue when we talk about things like cars and parking, there's 68 units. Do you know how many parking spaces they're allocating? Both garage that you have to pay additional for, plus parking spaces, 104. That's a real, and that does, how many of those are handicapped? Now, you have people parking all over the place and the fire or the EMS or the police need to get in, they're gonna be blocked. It's gonna be a safety hazard.
Well, the plan, I think in the letter that, when we talk about what we usually look at, we usually ask for a report by public safety to make sure there's appropriate turnarounds, to make sure that, so that public safety and turnarounds and
And,
traffic will obviously. be included in
and there's
that.
a
Yeah.
review of parking as
Yeah,
well.
because,
Thank God.
Yeah. yeah, I mean, all this stuff is, again, it doesn't, several people have said it doesn't satisfy, it's like make it go away, but it's, it at least, it's something that they'll have to at least justify, and so, okay. Can we- if
Well,
it's-
Marcia has a lot of good points, and
Yeah.
Marcia, you want to continue, because she's actually one of the spokes.
Oh, so she's gonna continue.
All right.
So you're deferring your time.
Yielding my time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like Marcia to continue.
So
Okay.
the history of the area is
Thank you.
this, where Memorial School was built.
Mhm.
Some people who grew up here said, do you know what happened before your neighborhood was around and they had Memorial School? They put shovels in the ground and the people around them flooded. And I was told that it was so bad, they had the fire department come down to pump them out. People who were kids in that area.
This was at Whitney?
This is Memorial School.
Yeah.
Whitney wasn't built yet, so it was people surrounding that.
Okay.
So I guess,
Yeah.
the older houses.
Yeah.
Now, before, kids that used to play, they said, there's two streams that were there before the houses were built on Whitney and Hazeltine, and the builder obviously buried them.
Mhm.
So we have water problems like you would not believe. One woman said her kids came home from school and found their dog swimming in the basement. And I mean, it strikes a real, I mean, she has the new house that they built during the pandemic. I won't say who built it, but they had water issues. Lowisha put in,
You're talking about up on Fisk.
yeah, this is on Fisk,
Yeah.
and on a flat surface,
Yeah.
flat land. They put in a sump pump, and we were told that that sump pump was not sufficient. These people who bought this new house spent $25,000 putting in drains and regrading. So we have water issues that, and it's not just one or two houses, it's everyone. When they built Laurel Lane, we had water issues. We have sinkholes, and all of a sudden the sinkhole when they were building dropped a couple feet, and you go, what happened here? My front steps, they dropped. I had to have new steps put in, they fell 2 feet. You're gonna put a 5-story building on unstable ground? They had to put pilings in to put my steps back. So, I mean, we have water issues galore.
Yeah, I think, again, some of the stuff that's been outlined so far used to be pretty dramatic, to say the least. And I think that, as Mass Housing said in its notice, that there are certain things that are gonna have to be answered for. And I think when the ZBA does its, I don't know what the wetland situation is there. I don't know what the parking that is realized, that's all right. Does seem incredibly low. Usually it's 2 per, and then there's visitors parking.
Yes.
I mean, when they were talking about another project in town, it's 2.5 times the population.
No,
And so, so it just seems that some of the stuff is gonna have to be addressed if the project is so cost effective at that point. But I don't know. I assume, these are the staff. But I think this is stuff that the ZBA will definitely be addressing. And especially you talk about water, you talk about public safety, you're talking about traffic studies, you're talking about parking. You're talking about all that stuff. So I think that's something that, and this is a process. This isn't gonna go up overnight.
No,
It's a process.
don't be so certain.
I have a question for you. You had mentioned earlier that you passed, well, it's not clear on the option to buy from the town. Somebody had a purchase on land and then you could purchase it anyway?
If you have a tax, it's called the 61A, if your land in essence gets a tax lien, a tax break from the town, the town gets the right of first refusal if you do decide to sell it, to convert it to.
So that wouldn't be an
It
option.
would, no, unfortunately, would not be an option. I know, I know that's one of the things that doesn't apply to this parcel.
Madam Chairperson, I mean, one thing that I would ask you to expect is drainage, is an environmental impact report for approval, which tells you the peak flows, the drainage tendencies, what, they'll give a 2-foot contour. They'll say where they're cutting and where they're filling, and they'll have to measure the drainage, and it can't increase when they're done. So
They being the developer.
they be a developer, so they're required to, with us anyway, to file a surface and subsurface drainage report as well as an environmental impact report, so that we can tell what's gonna happen to the basements and everything downhill.
The one thing is that the town bylaw, will not be. It's the state regs.
So are you?
I would just say one other thing. Right now, I told you about the streams, the underground streams. All of our water comes from underground in this town. We don't have a reservoir. And right now, that whole land filters anything coming down from our neighborhood. So it helps. We have 2 pumping stations and 4 wells within 2 miles of this property. And they're going to take away this area that filters everything and replace it with asphalt, which is contaminants, road chemicals, lawn chemicals, and it's adding to. There's people surrounding us with private wells. If they contaminate the underground water, what are they going to do? So we're really concerned about a water supply here. And if you don't mind, I wrote up something, actually, some of us got together and wrote up something for the ZBA. And if you don't mind, I'll email it to you because it goes through all of the concerns. It's a few pages long, but it'll give you an idea if that would be of help.
Do you want to email it to Mike and forward it?
Is this what you sent earlier?
Yeah.
Do you want to forward it?
Yeah,
Okay.
Mike,
They have town water and town sewer.
Yes.
We do, which is
Yeah.
why it's going through, right? Why the.
That's where they want that property.
Because it's a 7 acre lot in the middle of downtown, with town water down. Although covered with wetlands.
So next, you guys have deferred or?
Yeah, that's fine, I guess. But my only thing that I'd like to say, so being the planning board, so what is, again, I'm concerned too about the impact of them coming in. This is going to be on Route 140. Are there certain guidelines that they have to meet? Again, I thought maybe this is why they also picked this place, because it was on 140 and more easy access,
The
or
only-
different laws apply.
The only thing I know is they have to get state approval for the curb cuts to get into the property,
Okay, yeah.
but other than that, there's not much of a restriction.
Again, we would always ask for public safety to make sure, and you guys have covered this in your comments in the letter from Mass Housing too, is to look at egress and to make sure that, you know, that it's safe, you know, that maybe uploadable neighbors, you know. But that's something, again, that will be looked at, I think, at the ZBA. And if it's not, I'm sure you guys will request that they look at that in the ZBA.
The only thought I'm gonna leave you with.
Can you state your
Oh,
name?
I'm sorry, Mary Ellen Kennedy, 22 Hazeltine Road. So the only thing I would add to what Masha added was when you come around the bend near School Street, look up towards the funeral parlor and imagine a 5.5-story building. And it will take it away because, and then the fact it's in Willie's backyard and my front yard really is not a good thought.
So you signed up.
I'm Dick Kennedy, 22 Hazeltine Street. It's going to be, Willie's about 310 feet at sea level. They're planning on being 330 to 340 above and then going a full 5. Now, when we look at Willie's house, it's probably going to be 3.5 stories above him with the lights and all the trees. When I look at that picture over there of the pond, that's what Willie's backyard currently looks like. When they're done, Willie's gonna see right through to Main Street.
No, he's gonna see through to an apartment building.
Yeah, you don't see anything.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you have any comments?
It's Stephen Patrice, 17 Main Lane, the closest about the town. And I wonder when they clear cut it too, I was looking at the plans there. You know, you're talking about the water that's already there. Well, the trees are absorbing a lot of that
Right.
water.
Yeah.
So they're gonna clear cut the whole area. So the nice thing about our neighborhood, I thought, and I'm not an original, I've only been 24 years, is that they didn't clear, yeah, I'll never be a town engineer. But they didn't clear cut everything, which is nice.
Right.
And they left a lot of trees, and I know they had water problems and they buried a lot of things and people have problems, but
We're still here though.
yeah.
Right.
It's great that they buried all the utilities, all the things people talked about. But I think when they clear cut that, it's a whole different story, the water issue.
So what part of the review of this will also involve sequencing? So especially on a place where there's water issues, a lot of times you can't just clear cut it. You
Yeah.
can't go in there and clear cut that many acres and expect disaster. And so they'll have to do small.
Who does that? Oh,
It's actually in the plan. It should be in the plan that they produce. Any sequencing that's gonna happen.
is that there, Michael?
It shows everybody's
Sequencing? Is that?
on our back.
Yes.
Sure, I would defer to our peer review engineer who's gonna review it.
Yeah.
No, I thought that their intention was to leave they have changed, but to leave the buffer of trees around.
They
They
can't.
don't have room.
They don't have room. There's no way for them to have room.
Yeah.
And his plan that Michael has, the design plan, there are no trees. It's just arborvitae's and a 6-foot fence between, he's shaking his head, yes, he agrees, between our development and that development. So we are going to have no trees, just arborvitae's and fence.
And erosion. Erosion is gonna go crazy.
This is a horrible thing for Upton, horrible.
We're gonna lose our property.
Okay, do you have any comments?
Yeah,
Your name first.
Patrick Hurley, 13 Whitney Lane. A couple of things that I'm concerned with, and it has to do with the wetlands. And it's not only how the road snakes through. But what I'm concerned with is when they do blasting, all the trees are gonna fall down. There's the water there is, if you walk back there like I have, you'll see that when trees blow over, not in a hurricane by any means, the root structure is that way. So if the planning board has experience with blasting and all the things that are gonna go on to build that thing, it's gonna have a real impact on the wetlands. And I just want all the wetlands people to be aware of that. Secondly, when they're building this road, it sort of snakes through it very nicely on the schematic. That's real engineering drawing. Schematic. Who enforces, what order, who enforces that all the equipment that's going to be moving through there doesn't cut across wetlands?
I think that would be the Concom, wouldn't it?
Well,
I'd be the state.
it'll be the state.
No, but they can enforce.
Yeah, so
Something
the State Wetland Protection Act is what's
Right.
supposed to deal with
That's the
that.
governing law, but
Right.
who enforces?
In
a bunch of
normally in the town,
contractors?
it's the Concom and the,
Well, I mean, and
Enforce.
when issues come up,
Yeah.
we have a part-time conservation agent. So obviously we use her pretty effectively at the time that she's here. Though I've called the state previously when there's been complaints to act quickly to get out to a property and say, hey, we have major concerns of something filling in a wetland over the weekend, please get out there and review. And they
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what I'm worried about.
Well, geographically, there's a reason why there's standing water there.
Yeah.
And either one's a good reason, can be building on.
And the second issue that I have goes around safety that Marcia brought up about Fisk. How many kids are gonna be walking down that 5-foot sidewalk while the cars are coming out in the morning? How do they queue up for the bus? I don't see any provision for that. We've got a sidewalk, we've got the Main Street sidewalk. The safety issues on this are incredible. And when somebody gets hit and hurt, who's responsible? Oh, and one last thing I thought. What if Loberster's wrong and this is an economic failure? This thing just sits there.
Just sits there. We just, because it's our.
We can't take any legal action to hold somebody responsible for the long-term viability of the building.
We do as the planning board is we don't release all of the units. If you're building a subdivision, we try to prevent that from happening. So we don't release all of your lots. You have to sell them and then we release the next batch.
Okay.
So that there's, so we don't run into a half-built subdivision, with half-built houses.
But this is a.
This is apartments. This is a little
It's all
different.
gonna be built.
Yeah.
A little
know,
different.
I'm worried about this being the equivalent of a mall.
No, I mean, that's what I was gonna say, is that happens with most, too. That happens a lot where people build and they become obsolete. I mean, a lot of developments, just concerns. with
Senior
that.
housing project on North Street, senior housing project on,
Yeah.
just over the border in Hopkinton. Senior housing project up here, we just approved
Governor's Landing.
on Governor's Landing up. So you're exactly right. What happens if when this is built, there isn't any
Market for it.
market for it and it's too expensive?
Does the DBA answer to these questions or who answers to
That, I don't think those,
The permitting board.
the committee?
And that's responsible for the permits.
that would be.
Answer those questions.
ZBA. Yeah, good questions to bring to
Yeah.
ZBA.
That's why this is frustrating, because I would love to, I think we all would love to, but we can't, and it's close to the CBA. So.
I know, but we need the more ears that hear our concerns, right?
As I said, I respect that. I think that's.
Well, we have two secret weapons right here.
We hope, but I've been to Michael and I've been to Mary Overhaul both. Marcia and I both have for conversation after conversation. We're
It's just-
trying every avenue.
Yeah, I mean, that's, yeah, it's, so. And
I'm done.
do you have any comments?
Mary Gurley, 13 Whitney Lane. My big concern is the schools, because I think whenever you have apartment building, I mean, you don't know how many children are going to go in, but if every family had one child, that's 60 children that are added with all the other developments that are in building of houses that are going on. I think the school system would be impacted. And the other thing I have real concern for is, and tell me if I'm wrong, it was my understanding that the road that will go into the development will be not town plowed, town taken care of. It will just be their responsibility.
Correct.
And I don't know if there's sidewalks planned. From one of the meetings I was at, I heard the school buses will stop on 140, which again will hold up traffic. And for 26 years, I took the road to 495. And when the school bus was there, it was like really slowed everything up a lot. And if the kids have to walk from the apartment building all the way down to the beginning of the driveway, will there be sidewalks? Will there be, strictly, can the town strictly enforce the speed limit? Because those are going to be little kids, K through 4, walking, not only K through 4, all the kids in the system walking up that street to get the school bus.
Through the chair, if I may.
Yes.
A couple things. The first one is that private road that they're developing may not always be a private road. Those citizens on that road can at any time petition the town and say, we want this as a public way. It's happened before where a private road becomes a public way. You go to the town floor, you petition the town votes for it. It's no longer a private way, it's a town road. So because of that, you really have to have the zoning, but has to have this designed as a town road with sidewalks, with all of the right dimensions, right depth, right everything that you would expect a regular road to have, a regular town road, because it may be a town road. The second thing is the town is responsible for that. If it's a storm and the developer hasn't plowed it yet, his private road hasn't been plowed yet, and there's an emergency, the town's responsible to respond to that emergency, and they'll have to plow it themselves. The town may have to plow it just to get their emergency through. So the town still has the responsibility for that roadway and may have full responsibility later. So it should be built to town standards. And that may be a problem. Developer will want to shrink the road, shrink this, shrink that, but it should be built to town standards, and don't believe them that it's a public road. Still, it may be a private road. It may not always be a private road.
Which is a good point for with the ZBA. So do you have any comments? Are you done with your
I
comments?
just have one other question or comment. Is there a law in the town of Buckton, the new apartment building 149 was built down there? Is there a law that limits the amount of people who can inhabit a building that size? Like, is there, so many people per acre or per apartment? Is there any
Not zoning.
limitation?
But there
For the
might
number of
be
people?
some building code that I'm unaware of. that would go-
Because
I
that's
don't
another,
believe.
The
so.
problem with that is we can't limit, I'm sorry to cut you off, finish. The issue with limiting amount of people, I mean, I'd have to ask fire as well, you know, do occupancy ratings apply to things like that? That typically applies to congregational spaces. But as far as like units themselves, you know, you can't necessarily restrict the size of a family. That gets into fair housing issues when you're talking about families. When you're talking about unrelated people living together, then I believe there is some sort of boarding house law or rule that applies. It's not a local rule, though. I believe it's state building code.
Because that is another concern of mine, that the number of occupants on that small parcel of land could be way over what it should be.
Okay, that's any comments or?
Not really. My name is Alex Foster from 14 Whitney Lane. And I've been around here quite a while. And I hate to see this upheaval that we're gonna have to deal with. And I look at it, I'm gonna get probably a real dose of the lighting coming across the street. If it isn't that, it's other things. I wish this process, this situation could be moved somewhere else. And all these, all these concerns are valid in my eyes. And see at the moment where it goes.
Is there anyone online that wants to make a comment?
There's at least
Yes.
one.
Hi,
John Reed.
my name is John Reed. I'm in a butter. I live on Whitney Lane. And I wanted to focus on the overall impact on the town. And I said this a month or so ago, and that is, I believe strongly that 40B housing is fine. It's the right thing to do. However, we as a town, do we really want a 4 or 5 story building towering over our historic district? There are several other points that my neighbors have made very well, like the wetlands impact and the impact on the schools and so forth. But if we take a step back and visualize what Main Street 140 looks like, there's a hill. We have 1-story, 2-story homes on School Street and Main Street. Do we really want a gigantic high-rise building looming over the rest of the town? Not to mention the fact that it's the historic district. I'm very concerned that a building of this nature in this particular location is going to have a very detrimental impact on the town and the flavor of the town. I mean, one of the beautiful things about Upton, and I've lived here almost 43 years now, is its rural character. I understand, time moves on, we have to adapt and all of that. But do we really want to allow this huge building to be built on a hill overlooking the town? There was discussion about 149 Main, and from what I can tell, Lobosur did a nice job with that. But the location is entirely different. That blends it in to West Main Street with arguably minimal impact on the town. Contrast that with a big building on a hill overlooking the downtown area. I think it's a disaster, frankly, for the town. Now, I do have a question for the planning board. I was listening to the earlier comments. My question for the planning board is, do you take a position on opposing or approving this, or are you excluded from taking a position? That's my question.
We are excluded from the process. I think that I could be wrong,
No,
that
we're excluded,
technically we could make a recommendation to the zoning board,
only if asked.
only if asked, but I also don't think that, you know, where what everyone said is very understandable. I would disagree with it. I'd be reluctant to make a recommendation based on wetlands and without being able to see like any studies or anything supporting it. I mean, that's usually where we bring in consultants, where we usually rely on public safety. And it's unfortunate the way this works. I think everybody here, you know, wishes we didn't, you know, that we could say where we wanted stuff built and how we wanted to build, what we wanted to look like. But until we reach 10%, we can't, you know, so, you know, I think that our involvement is, you know, our advocacy or not advocacy is not, you know, something that's, we can do.
Okay, understood. Understood. My comment would be that we as residents of Upton need to take a stand one way or the other. I'm firmly opposed to this particular location. And I think it's for the good of the Upton community to reject this particular location and encourage the builders to find a more appropriate location. Thank you for your time and thank you for listening.
Does anybody else have their hands up? Or does anyone else who doesn't, they don't, but does anyone else who doesn't have their hands up want to comment?
Yeah, online, if you could just, if you want to comment and you don't know how to raise your hand, if you could unmute yourself and announce yourself.
Okay, well, seeing no further public comments, I'm gonna close that portion of the meeting now and move to the next step, which will be draft letter outlining to the ZBA the process we would normally follow, the things we would normally look at. And Michael, I'd be willing to work on the draft to present at the next.
Yeah, I'll try to
planning board
find.
meeting. Yes, yeah, I was gonna say, if you could, and I'll incorporate some of the other comments that people have made. And, you know, it will be up for discussion at the next meeting.
Can I just ask a quick question while Michael thinks? Michael, did the master plan, that housing plan, get submitted to the state and accepted? So we missed that by 2 months. There's a 1 to 2 year moratorium with the town asked. That's not true?
No, it's, I mean, basically was submitted to the state, has not been approved by the state.
Oh, it
yet.
hasn't been accepted.
But it only gives you the safe harbor if you make, what is it, 40% of your affordable housing goals?
No,
It's
either like 1.5 or 0.5%.
Yeah,
It's an
0.5.
increase. I forget what it
So
is.
it's not just that the plan is submitted, you have to have moved forward on meeting some of your goals. And so it's, yeah, so that's one of the things that we're trying to do is, you know, make up for loss.
But to your point, yes, you're correct. We, that plan was not submitted and approved
Missed it by
before this.
3 months.
And then, yeah, and then that would have had to been submitted and approved. And then like, if 149 Main Street then happened thereafter, right? If this was done, if those projects were inverted, then yeah, we'd be in safe harbor, but
We're not.
they're
The thing is, the appeal process is different, with the zoning board and the planning board. When you appeal a planning board's decision, it goes through the court system. Goes to the court. When you appeal a zoning board decision, it goes on this, it goes to the housing.
housing court,
The
mass housing.
state mass housing, but it's not even the court, it's an executive.
Exactly.
So it stays in the executive branch and doesn't go through the court system. A little bit tougher to appeal.
Explain that to me.
So a quick question for Michael, and is if, you talked about doing an RFP before we open for public comment
Mhm.
on, actually during the earlier planning board meeting, took us the whole hassle of RSPs you did to get somebody to work with the ZBA to, you know, so they understood how all the complexities of 40B and how to, you know. When, has that been, have you submitted that RFP yet?
This morning.
Oh, this morning. How long does that take to be heard?
I think it's fairly quick because they ask questions like, when is the first meeting?
Okay.
And, has the first meeting been conducted? So.
Yeah.
It's through Mass Housing Partnerships. So they're fairly responsive. I know they already received it because they
Okay.
emailed me back.
Okay. And in your experience, I know when they were talking about the ones up off of Westboro Road, the houses, it took almost a year to get through zoning, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
It was a long time.
Yes.
Is there any estimate of what the process would be to even get to the next step for this project? I mean, to get to the ZB, because there's a
what's the
lot of,
timeline for this,
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
permitting to the zoning board?
yeah. Because there's a lot of information.
It
developer
could, I
has
mean,
to-
really, going off of history, that could be up to a year.
Yeah.
I imagine we'll be having hearings through the holidays.
Yeah.
But it all depends on the applicant's willingness to work with the board to extend those deadlines, much like they do with this board. So there are, forgive me, I'm forgetting the actual timeframes, but there's certain, from the start of when they submit an application, the zoning board has, I think it's only 30 days to hold that public hearing. They submitted this application like 35 days before the planning board, the zoning board could schedule their next hearing. So they, submitted something in writing saying, we agree to extend that deadline so that the board can actually open a hearing.
Yeah.
Right, so we have that on file, it's signed by them, that's, check, okay. Once the public hearing is started, the board has, and I think it's the same as for this board, it's something like 90 days to conduct the public hearing. And the public hearing can span multiple meetings, obviously. And that's when it's the board's duty to receive testimony, receive information, have the information that's submitted reviewed by the peer review engineer, have that peer review engineer submit reports to the board. In these circumstances, usually that's like a fight between engineers, essentially like peer review says, hey, you missed this. Their review says, no, we didn't. Our review says, we think you did. And that goes back and forth for quite a while. And
Happens a lot with the planning board.
and that ends up running into the applicant wants that to be resolved. So they're like, yeah, we'll extend the public hearing, to such and such date and, can go on month to month to month to month, meeting to meeting to meeting. But then once that public hearing is closed, you then have, I think it might be 60 days with the planning board. Again, I don't have my time frames for the zoning board. You have some period of time, month to 2 months, to actually, for the zoning board to take all the information that was submitted at the public hearing and deliberate on that information and craft a decision, whatever that decision is. And then they have to, by that deadline, have a decision signed and recorded, just like this board does.
Yeah.
So again, it's a moving target. If things were to happen strictly within those statutory timelines, it's like a 3 to 4 month process only.
Yeah.
Hardly ever operates within those timeframes.
So any other comments from the board? Okay, I don't think we need to vote. This is a discussion. I do want to say to the folks that came here, I respect your dedication and commitment to this. This is the long road. I think that everybody here, is frustrated, and their hands are tied. And I think you've been very, respectful of the limitations of folks that are part of the process often. I think there is a long road ahead. And, we will submit a letter saying what we usually look at. And, we will be following this. I'll be at, I don't know if anyone else is going, but I'll go to the October 18th meeting and listen in on some of the stuff that's being said. And you'll be notified of our next meeting, which is on the 10th, where we're gonna discuss the letter and approve the letter. So,
They don't, I don't care who it is, they don't have the right to make the town unsafe. Period.
you know, I think public safety is one of the things that they're supposed to be looking at, making sure that whether, what they're gonna do with the roads. You know, again, there's the ZBA, the same stuff we're looking at, the ZBA is gonna be looking at.
Mhm.
You know, so within the context of the law, again, the height restrictions,
And again, our advice will, I'm sure it'll be something like you should get an entire drainage study, which addresses both the conservation's needs for drainage for the environment and the homeowner's need for drainage for their property lawns and stuff. So there should be a drainage study that addresses all aspects of that.
I think what we were talking about was doing a letter of things that we would normally be looking at, including a drainage study,
That's
you know,
pretty much, I think, all we got.
rather
left
than
is
making,
to-
yeah.
is to list those things that we would traditionally look at.
Yep.
So Michael and I will work on that and have that ready.
And we volunteer Mike and Grace for whatever they need
Yeah.
to work for them anyway.
Okay, is there any other item for discussion? By your motion to adjourn?
You hear one?
Okay, I don't need to take roll call. I've been talking, I don't need, okay, meeting's adjourned.